You're listening to Great Life, Great Career with Scott Miller, brought to you by FranklinCovey.
Welcome back, everyone. This is a fascinating conversation we're having with General Christine Burckle, the commander of the Utah Air National Guard. She just began to share some experiences around what it was like to become a female general, any kind of discrimination that she had experienced in her own career. I want to move in just a moment into this topic today of diversity and inclusion. General, what advice would you give leaders outside of the military, leaders of a small team, a division, a platform, a company, a multinational, how they can be better representatives of what is not just a trend right now around unconscious bias? There are some cultural issues that kind of come and go. A fool would think that unconscious bias that impacts all of our lenses, that a drive to be more inclusive, to honor, respect, and value diversity is a trend. This is a workplace seismic shift that will change the landscape of organizations in this culture. What advice would you give, just extemporaneously, on practical things leaders can do today in their teams to recruit, retain, honor, lift, and promote everyone in their organization?
So I think the first thing I would say is that they have to see diversity and inclusion as not a program like affirmative action or equal opportunity. It's about building equity in your organization. And the way you do that is that you make sure that you create an environment that people feel safe, that people feel that they can bring their talents to the table. And you should have teams that don't all look alike. I think it's been proven, I don't know by who, but I think it's been proven that the more difference you have
no question,
sitting at the table actually brings more value to what gets done.
In fact, FranklinCovey's co-founder, Dr. Stephen R. Covey, was famous for saying lots of wise things. One of them was, wow, you see it differently from me. That's a good thing. I need to learn more about that.
Absolutely. And every good leader knows that they should not surround themselves with yes men or yes women. They need to have differences of opinion and opportunities for people to basically bring their experiences and bring their backgrounds to the table to give us all that perspective.
Anything you've learned from your experience in hiring and recruiting and retaining around how to build a more diverse team? Any lessons you've learned the hard way might share?
So I think one of the things that myself and Chief Garrett have done is it's in that word do. You can't put a policy out and say, we're going to be diverse and we're going to recruit to a diverse community and reach out. You actually have to do it. And that can be fraught sometimes with some difficult conversations. So we've had, as part of our diversity and inclusion program, we have a council of young people, because over 50% of my force in the Utah National Guard is under the age of 35. So we had to entrust them with building these different events and celebrations of the nationally recognized, different backgrounds, race, creed, the Hispanic, Latino Heritage Month, the Black History Month, Women History Month, etc. And so we've actually had some challenges and some feedback from some of our folks as we've done those events has generated some difficult discussions. We had actually a head of the Ute tribe come and speak to us, and I think one of our members asked what I believe was kind of an insensitive question, and he took it so well. He actually turned it into a moment of teaching us. And I think as leaders, we really have opened ourselves up by inviting these different community leaders to come talk to us about how we can better build trust, which is really what it's about. When you're recruiting people and in order to retain people, you have to build their trust that they believe that you are setting them up to succeed and that if they join your team, they're going to be valued. And so we have, like I said, we've had a lot of different speakers. We had Luz Escamilla come speak with us, Representative Escamilla, talking to us about the Hispanic community and how when you're recruiting a candidate, you're not just recruiting that candidate, you're recruiting their whole family. And so when you're speaking to them, you have to understand that you got to have buy-in from that whole family, that they trust your organization, that they believe that you value what they bring. So I think I would say you have to do it. You can't write it on paper. You just absolutely have to get out there and create some of these opportunities for people to talk to each other.
Solid advice for every business leader as well. You're listening to Great Life, Great Career. Our guest today is General Christine Burckle, Commander of the Utah Air National Guard. General Burckle, you have lots of great stories. You've shared some of them off the air as well. You did share, I thought, a compelling story about your own journey. Was there a time in your career where you were especially frustrated or not respected as you thought you should have been as a female rising member of the military? Would you be vulnerable for a moment and share what happened and what you might coach others to do differently if they found themselves in the same situation?
I guess I'd have to start with when I worked really hard to finish number one in my class, and I thought I could fly the B-52. I knew women couldn't fly fighters, but I actually thought I could fly the B-52. And when they told me I couldn't, I didn't really ask any questions. I didn't raise a fuss, even though I knew I could absolutely do that job. So I kind of moved forward, and I was just happy to fly for the Air Force. But years later, when I was being judged in what's called a check ride, where you're being evaluated on a mission, I landed, and it probably wasn't a sterling mission for me, but, I passed the check ride, and I just remember one of the older senior male pilots saying, well, she's not bad for a girl. And I just let it roll off, and I walked away from that. But if that happened in today's military, that person would not be able to be a leader without having to explain their attitude and their approach. And so I probably let a few things roll off early in my career that I wish maybe I would have spoken up for myself. So I would have to say at this point, anyone listening who maybe feels disrespected, that all it takes, and I don't know what I would have said, but all it takes is stopping for a moment and saying, I'm sorry, but I'm very offended by that comment, and I believe that you owe me better, and you need to respect me. We all have bad days. It wasn't about being a girl. So
you would advise people who are diminished or maligned or insulted in a workplace to graciously but firmly call it out on the spot?
Absolutely. And I think that's the way we move forward as organizations, because I think candidly, we do have those unconscious bias, and unless someone, we all have them. And if you really have good intentions, they will accept an apology from you. And I'd rather be called out or call someone out and have them say, I am very sorry, than to hold that in and maybe not be able to perform with that team again. So I think we all owe it to each other as people, and do it respectfully, but just to say, bottom line is, I felt disrespected. I feel like you could do better than that. I know your intentions were not to disrespect me. At least I hope they weren't. And I've found that people will accept an apology, and then I think we can all move on.
I've found that people can accept an apology unless you attach an excuse to it.
There you go.
That your apologies need to be excuse-free. Once you attach, well, but I was, or this, you've rendered your apology, moot. You have to just apologize with no disclaimers, no baggage, no attachments.
Own it. And if you own it, I'll respect you.
So far, the general has said, do it and own it. You'd expect that from a general. You mentioned that females could not at the time be pilots of fighter jets. Is that still the case? And
no.
Tell me why they couldn't and what's happened since then.
So I really honestly couldn't tell you why they couldn't. I believe that there was probably a fear of the
strength
of the environment, or that women flying in those austere pulling those G-force. I have no idea what the excuse was, but there is no military career field that there's a bar of any kind of either sex or any background serving in.
You strike me as a very bold and diplomatic, balanced person. I guess you earned that to become a general. I find it hard to believe you didn't ask why females couldn't. Did the culture not allow that question to be asked?
I think that's something that I'm going to have to dig a little deeper as I raise my daughter.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to try to find opportunities to express that. I will say that I had an opportunity to speak to a group of young women last summer, Camp Fury, this Girl Scout group. And Camp Fury was put together to have these 13 to 18-year-old young women be exposed to the police career field and the fire career field because it's non-traditional. And I got up there and spoke to them, and I'm like, get it, girls. Like, I do what you're passionate about. So I think as a society, we're kind of moving past the, barriers to entry because you're a woman. I think that all we do expect at this point is you can meet the standards and that you show the passion and that you want to do what it is you've set out to do.
I think your voice and your legacy commands a much larger platform than Scott Miller's Great Life, Great Career. And I think off the topic, I'd love to talk to you about how your book and your influence can become exponentially larger. You have been deployed in multiple operations. You have dedicated the majority of your life beyond being a daughter and a wife and a mother to the protection of our country and our allies. You have been deployed on multiple military missions, including Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm.
Shows you how old I am.
Operations Uphold Democracy. I love these names. Joint Forge, Allied Force, and Enduring Freedom. You have dedicated your expertise, your commitment, your passion for this country in multiple missions. You share a story that I'd like you to share with our audience today around an engagement you had in a foreign country when you landed with another female member of a foreign country's military and some awkwardness that occurred and a lesson you learned from it. Would you take us on that journey?
So as a general, I've had a great opportunity to represent our country and our state overseas and also to show women overseas that the United States actually promotes on merit and that you can do anything you want to do. And so in this foreign country, I was approached by a young woman in uniform, excited to meet a woman general. And she preempted the general I was supposed to be meeting with.
In line or?
Yeah, he was supposed to come greet me, and she ran over and she was so excited and passionate, and I was so engaged with her that I guess maybe I ignored him. I don't know, but he came up and he disciplined her in front of me, physically disciplined her, and she was mortified. And I was...
This happened right in front of you.
Stunned. I was stunned. It did. It happened in front of me. And then I was supposed to proceed into the conference room and have this discussion with this foreign general officer who is a very accomplished person, but I was stunned at what happened. And then it really hit me that we have a lot of work to do in the world. And that while I maybe take for granted that I got to do this job in this country and represent this country, that we still have a lot of work to do in this world. And so I will say I understood what happened, but I didn't like it. I didn't appreciate it. And I would never, I don't think if it happened again, I don't know that I would probably have allowed it to go by without maybe having a discussion. But I will just say that we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go. And one of my goals is to set the stage, at least in this country, for future female generals, future LGBT generals, because I want them to see what they can be.
Are there members of the LGBT community serving in a general capacity in our U.S. military?
I'm absolutely certain there are. Honestly, I think at this point, it's a moot point. It's you do your job and you prepare yourself and you accept that next level of responsibility. And
what do you see as your legacy? I've mentioned this probably too many times, that you're one of the few female generals in the U.S. military. What do you see as both your responsibility? You're coming into your retirement years. You're quite young. You're younger than I am, but see you're retiring is kind of ironic. What do you see as your influence, your responsibility, and your legacy, given the very unique mantle that you've earned and have respected?
I hope that what I've done is set the stage for the future. I will say that the military is a fantastic place to people join for different reasons, to get benefits like education benefits like myself, or for health benefits, or to learn a trade. I mean, they join for different reasons, but they stay because of the people. And they also stay because of the environment. And I know that I'm going to so miss wearing this uniform and serving with my airmen And it's going to be very hard for me to take it off in a couple months. But my hope is that I've done all the right things to set the stage, that they know how important it is. Bottom line is to support each other as wingmen. And I had a lot of support, as I've talked about previously, by my wingmen. And to know that into the future, it takes all of us, and it is stronger together. I can't even say that enough. I think it's stronger together.
General Burckle, you mentioned that you are a wife and a mother. Your daughter is 16 years old here in Salt Lake City. What advice would you give all women, all young ladies that are aspiring to leadership positions, that perhaps if they run the risk of not being chosen or run roughshod over, what advice would you give to women in general about their leadership aspirations? And then I want you to answer the same question. What advice would you give to men to support the women?
So the advice I would give to women is don't sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short. Believe in yourself. It's funny. My mom, one of 9, grew up on a farm, never went to college. And she always told me, you do whatever you want to do. You can do it. Believe in yourself. And I would also say, to the men on the other side is same thing. I mean, believe in yourself, but also I think understand that the most important thing to keep in mind is we're all people, and we all have emotions, and we all have things that are important to us. And I think that just like when I see parents that deploy, it breaks my heart to see, moms leaving their kids, but it breaks my heart to see dads leaving their kids. And so I think moving forward, the advice I would give is to follow your passion, follow your dreams, support others that do, lift them up, give them opportunities. And I think you will see this next generation of kids. I have so much hope for them because I think they are brilliant. They have everything it takes. And I think we're on a good path.
General, in our closing moment here, what does the U.S. military need from our citizens, from our elected leaders, that you think maybe it's not getting in its full? Is there any advice, or is there anything happening in the military you're especially proud of that you wished the U.S. population knew and would better appreciate and support if they did? What do you need from me?
So just from my personal experience, I will say this, that there are less and less people out there with a propensity to serve, because we previously used to recruit people because their parents served or their grandparents served. And
it was a family legacy.
Yeah, it's a family legacy. And now when I'm speaking at a school or something and I say, raise your hand if your grandpa, your mom, or dad have served in the military, very few hands are going up these days. So we are a smaller and smaller military. So I just want to thank you for recognizing us and what we do, because we are such a small segment of the community and society. And I want to thank our employers, because as guardsmen, most of us have civilian jobs. So when they give us that opportunity to serve, and I know that it can hurt their business when our folks deploy, but when they support our airmen and soldiers, I just think that gives us, this is just me, but faith that it's appreciated. And when I go and visit those folks overseas that are deployed, they feel our love and appreciation thousands of miles away. So when you do say thank you for your service, I smile a little because I feel like giggling, going, you're thanking me for getting to do the best thing I've ever gotten to do in my whole life, but you're welcome. But I say, no, thank you for your support. So always thank your service members, but thank their families too. If you're standing in line at the grocery store and you see a service member checking out and they've got their children with them or they have their spouse with them, don't just thank the service member, thank their family, because that is honestly the only way that we can serve our country, is having their support too.
General Christine Burckle, I'm humble in your presence. Thank you for joining us today on Great Life, Great Career. I wish you the best of success as you move to the next phase of your life, as you near your own retirement. What's next for you and your family?
Oh, boy. Well, I need to learn to golf because...
That's not a bad gig.
I know, but it's like it takes so much time that I haven't had, and my husband's
Well,
big
you don't have
golfer.
time to golf because you're going to author a couple of leadership books. You're going to go on the speaking tour, and I see a great future, if not with some other company, for sure, FranklinCovey. So
Well, I now want to give back to my community because I feel like it's so important that the support I've received that somehow I could return. And I really do appreciate this support and this opportunity. And I do want to say, if any of you do want to honor the Armed Forces, this happens to be Armed Forces Week.
That's right.
This weekend is Armed Forces Day. And down at the Gallivan Center, there's it's just a concert, and it's just an opportunity. A lot of us service members attend, and I would just say thank you to the whole community for your support. And I will try to fade away for a little while. I think I need to focus on my family.
Yeah.
They've really supported me, so.
Our pleasure. Thank you for being our guest today. You've been listening to General Christine Burckle. My name is Scott Miller. You're listening to Great Life, Great Career.